Last year, I had the fantastic opportunity through Collider to go and visit Warner Brothers Leavesden, as DC Studios was there filming Supergirl. So, here are some of the things that I learnt on set.
Okay, this does not look like this is gonna end well. For you guys.
We joined Supergirl just 10 days out from the end of shooting, but that did not mean that things were winding down. Executive producer Chantal Nong-Vo revealed that the team would remain at Warner Brothers Leavesden in Hertfordshire, England for a maximum of 3 more days, before heading to Scotland and then further north to Iceland to finish shooting on location. Collider visited set in April 2025, which marked the production's 70th day overall. Director Craig Gillespie compared it to the last week of school, with everyone aware that the end was in sight, yet remained determined to make the most of the time left. The entire unit was on the backlot, filming a flashback sequence set on Krypton, an emotional scene depicting Kara's mother's funeral. Everyone was dressed in cream and blended into the imposing Romanesque colonnade flanked by a lake. During its time at Leavesden, production had occupied the backlot, 5 sound stages, and built so many smaller sets that the team lost count of the final number. The scale of Supergirl was immediately clear, but what stood out the most were the finer details and the level of coordination required between departments. From hearing how DC Studios co-chiefs James Gunn and Peter Safran worked with Gillespie, to learning firsthand from the craftspeople on set, Supergirl was a highly collaborative production. Creative decisions were being made collectively, with each department building on the work of the others to bring the shared story to life. The result is a wealth of thoughtful visual choices and character-driven details that audiences may not consciously notice, but will undoubtedly feel. Supergirl is deliberately not trying to be Superman. Superman had yet to be released at the time of our visit, so anticipation was still building around the film that would define the style, tone, and direction of the new DCU. While Gunn and Safran oversee the broader shape of the universe, Craig Gillespie, known for I, Tonya and Cruella, brought his own blend of quirky humour and emotion to Supergirl, with Ana Nogueira making her feature screenwriting debut. When Superman did eventually launch, Clark Kent's story was full of optimism and heroism, but Supergirl is deliberately changing suits. The film reflects Kara's trauma and cynicism, shaped by her memories of Krypton's destruction and the loss of her family, and Gillespie set out to make an unconventional coming-of-age story. Kara has already fought crime on Earth, so her journey is not about becoming a superhero, but about doing that role with her full self. As Nong-Vo puts it, what do you do with a loss so profound that it defines your life? And what do you do after it? While the feature shares some DNA with Guardians of the Galaxy, Dune and Star Wars, Unit publicist Sophie Scott was keen to emphasise that its primary inspiration remains Tom King's 8-issue miniseries Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. Supergirl is a space western wrapped in a superhero adventure, following Kara Zor-El's interplanetary journey alongside Krypto and later Ruthie Marie Knoll, played by Eve Ridley, a young girl seeking justice for her father's murder at the hands of Krem of the Yellow Hills, played by Matthias Schoenaerts. While the comic is told from Ruthie's perspective, the film keeps the relationship between the two girls central, while remaining fundamentally Kara's story. Another key relationship stems directly from King's original unrealised pitch for Woman of Tomorrow, a team-up between Supergirl and Lobo, with the pair occupying similar roles to Matthew Ross and Rooster Cogburn in True Grit. According to Nong-Vo, Jason Momoa had long expressed an interest in playing the character, and the team found a way to incorporate him that both served the story and fulfilled his ambition. She described Lobo as having a very high-impact 15% presence in the film as a bounty hunter whose goals align with Kara and Ruthie's, but only when it benefits him. Momoa's casting gives the film a big selling point, but throughout the visit it was Millie Alcock who received the most praise, and she met it with a bashful look. Although this is her first feature, nobody on the production spoke about her like a newcomer. Present for approximately 95% of the shoot, Alcock tackles extensive stunt work, emotionally demanding material, and dialogue in multiple languages. Nong-Vo shared that she brings a free-spirited punk rock energy to Kara, creating a heroine who feels delightfully messy in all the ways that your 20s are supposed to be.
You know, I'm just worried that you're not going to find your stride here if you keep going off-world all the time, Kara.
Supergirl has been building a galaxy in the old-fashioned way. One of the most striking aspects of the Supergirl set was how much of the film physically existed. While visual effects will undoubtedly expand the scale of the finished movie, the production's approach was firmly rooted in practical filmmaking, which is going to cause a significant buzz with fans. Neil Lamont led production design and visual development, drawing inspiration from architecture around the world, while Lee Sandales, fresh from winning the Academy Award for Wicked, oversaw set decoration. Together they have created a vast network of fully realised environments that allow performers to naturally inhabit the worlds, lending an authenticity to Kara's space exploration which would have been difficult to achieve against empty blue screens. Supergirl is first and foremost a planet-hopping adventure, and the production design needed to give each destination its own visual identity. Perhaps the most mythic for superhero fans is Krypton, which is explored here through flashbacks. Adorning the walls of the Leavesden production offices were complex drawings, renderings and diagrams, depicting life inside Argo, the domed capital city, built in a desperate attempt to preserve civilization. According to Scott, the production's interpretation of Krypton draws heavily from classical architecture, inspired by the fall of Rome and ancient Greece. Towering columns, expansive walkways, vast lakes, blossoming trees and pristine public spaces create a sophisticated world, yet one living on borrowed time. The costumes of Zor-El, played by David Krumholtz, and Allura Inzi, played by Emily Beecham, were inspired by the cream-coloured architecture and designed to feel like a uniform consistent across Kryptonian society. The Krypton set was also key for storytelling. Earlier in the production, the environment had to be filmed in its prosperity, but by the time that we arrived, it had been deliberately distressed. The lakes had been contaminated with what Sophie Scott jokingly describes as green kryptonite stuff, and the crew had physically painted decay to show the Empire's collapse. Production had also built more personal sets on Krypton, including Kara's family's apartment, complete with enormous glass windows, inspired by a power station on the English coast where Scott grew up, as well as Zor-El's laboratory and the escape pod that Kara uses to leave, mirroring Kal-El's own journey to Earth.
Home is wherever you are, buddy.
By the time we connect with her in the present, Kara has embraced spacefaring van life aboard an RV inspired by Riggs's caravan in Lethal Weapon. The ship's interior resembles a teenager's bedroom more than a fortress of solitude, with books, Polaroids and vinyls scattering the floor. It looks as free-spirited and chaotic as she is. When her RV is stolen, she is forced to find a new way to travel, and the most memorable mode of transport discussed on the visit was the wormhole bus. It's wider than an aeroplane cabin and was packed with stunt performers wearing elaborate prosthetics to denote the range of alien life forms travelling on intergalactic public transport. Rather than relying entirely on visual effects, the team also built the bus to physically rattle during filming. The journey eventually leads Kara to a space rest stop, which was one of the most colourful environments created for the production. Neon lights illuminate rows of alien snacks and slushies, and props designed an animatronic slug-like creature for this Space 7-Eleven, which poops popcorn, leaving a lasting impression on everyone who toured the set. The production also built 6 life-size tanks for the film. 2 were diesel-powered, 1 was electric, and 3 were wooden stunt versions. One sequence required a tank to roll over, prompting the construction of what the crew called a tank rotisserie, with both Alcock and Shonar inside the rotating rig. The most impressive set on Supergirl, however, was Evely Town Square. Named after the Woman of Tomorrow artist Bilquis Evely, it echoes Krypton in decline, with dusty floors, piles of rubble and rusting structures. The M stage was vast and immersive, with fully dressed streets and functioning businesses, including one store crew members had to push a trolley through to test its real-world accuracy. Evely's neon-lit pub became another favourite across the crew, which serves as a location where Kara and Ruthie eat fried eyeballs together. They look disturbingly convincing up close, but really they're made from fondant icing with a cake centre. Eve Ridley reportedly ate about 40 of them while filming.
You're hurting my head.
Kara Zor-El has to earn wearing the supersuit in this movie. Like every department we spoke to on Supergirl, the costume team described a process built around detailed collaboration. Costume designer Michael Mooney, known for Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, explained that decisions were shaped through constant conversations with the props department, armourers, set design, and special effects teams. We already saw Supergirl make a drunken entrance at the end of Superman, and the first look at the iconic suit. The two productions developed a shared visual language, and the suit went through numerous iterations before the cameras rolled. Mooney revealed that there were never any serious discussions about moving away from the classic boots and skirt combination, and the team committed to retaining the character's comic book look. The challenge instead was to modernise the suit for movement and action, so that Kara doesn't look powerful because of the suit looks powerful because of Kara. Millie Alcock's physical preparation played a major role in that process. Because of her training, there was little need for heavy muscle padding, resulting in one of the most body-close superhero costumes the department has ever produced. Stretch fabrics and new texture printing techniques were introduced to create an armoured feel while remaining highly flexible. The famous chest glyph required several adjustments after early versions restricted movement in the surrounding fabric, while the skirt, belt and cape were all designed to maximise motion during fight scenes. Mooney revealed that the cape fabric alone took 3 months to source worldwide. The feminine silhouette of the skirt and boots, alongside the flowing movement of the material, allowed for a stark and powerful contrast when Supergirl went up against much larger frames like Lobo and Krem. The only problem was the over-the-knee boots repeatedly required quick turnaround repairs after intense stunt work. Although the Supergirl costume is central to the film, Kara spends much of the story away from Earth and her responsibilities as a superhero. Nongvo explained that this represented one of the biggest departures from the source material, so her civilian wardrobe became just as carefully considered as the suit. Central to the look is the long coat that functions almost like a cape with a blondie graphic tee. Hundreds of indie bands were considered, intentionally avoiding mainstream acts before Craig Gillespie settled on Debbie Harry. Around 30 versions of the shirt were produced with print sizes and colours carefully adjusted to ensure the design remained visually congruent on camera. Lobo's look emerged from a particularly collaborative process with Jason Momoa himself. Mooney initially drew inspiration from biker culture and early 20th century army dispatch rider coats, before opting for something larger. Lobo's enormous coat is the heaviest costume in the production, and was designed to dramatically move as he rides into a scene on his Space Hog. Underneath is an embroidered jacket that took approximately 3 weeks to complete, with one costumer dedicated entirely to finishing it. The team also hand-sculpted Lobo's buttons in brass, silver and rubber, and developed a large chain necklace complete with a grenade. Momoa was heavily involved throughout production and pushed for a genuine metal chain, despite lighter alternatives being easier to work with. He also suggested claw-like fingernails, which replaced an earlier fingerless gloves concept. According to Mooney, few actors could convincingly wear a costume of Lobo's size and weight, but Momoa's commanding physical presence allowed the department to push the design further than they otherwise might have.
You managed to get most of it on the paper this time. Good job, buddy.
If it's on camera, the Supergirl props team are going to make it exist. Old-fashioned practical filmmaking continued into Supergirl's prop department, which, at its peak, comprised around 300 people with 75 prop makers and 10 painters. Supervising hand props, Charlie Horwood, acknowledged if something appeared on camera, the team wanted it to exist for real. The clearest example of this approach is Krypto. While many assume that the Superdog exists only in digital, Horwood presented a practical version made from an IKEA rug, which can breathe, blink, and wag its tail. The most difficult prop to make for Supergirl was Kara's space iPod. She carries both an original Nano and a futuristic alternative during the film, and for the latter there was no obvious starting point. The props team debated how closely it should resemble Apple's primary design, while still feeling like technology from another world. Finding original working iPods also proved difficult. The Nano functions as new, while the space version doesn't, so its screen content can be added by the VFX team. The weapons used in Supergirl began with recognisable real-world silhouettes, before pushing into sci-fi territory. The team's goal was often to spacify familiar objects, making them feel bigger, brighter and stranger. Most major weapons were created in multiple versions, including a highly detailed hero prop for close-up shots. Airsoft replicas provided a strong starting point, as they already featured moving parts and functional mechanisms, while rubber versions were produced for stunt sequences. 3D printing allowed for faster production, but paintwork took significantly longer, with processes such as gold chroming requiring 24 hours to cure. One of the most pivotal weapons in the film belongs to Ruthie's murdered father, and early discussions explored the possibility of using the sword more like a walking stick. As the story evolved, however, it would be actively used, including during the scenes filmed in Scotland shortly after the visit. As Ruthie is a young character expected to carry the sword for long periods, the props team produced lightweight versions that would remain comfortable on long days. The design itself draws heavily from the comics while incorporating Afghan influences of intricate gold filigree. Matthias Schoenaerts and Jason Momoa both collaborated with the Supergirl props team to enhance their characters. Schoenaerts suggested that Krem should always carry provisions for a long journey, so the team created a double-headed rat and bird-like creatures, which could be hung off his belt and eaten in scenes. Momoa's last-minute request was for Lobo's cigar made out of a vape to illuminate his face. Built in around 6 hours, the final result is Horwood's favourite and is paired with a brass punch lighter, which Lobo slams against a table to activate.
Sir, I think your cousin has returned.
Yep.
What the hell, dude? Why did you move the door?
Before we left Leavesden, the team screened exclusive footage of the film. There were certainly powerful moments involving Kara, yet the strongest reaction came when David Corenswet's Superman appeared with his broad Christopher Reeve-esque smile. Now as Supergirl finally heads towards its release, audiences should not prepare only for the same action-packed spectacle, but also take time to appreciate the film's attention to detail. Fans will ultimately decide how successful the production's shared vision is when it arrives in theatres later this month, but after spending the day inside of its worlds, it's clear that Supergirl has been built with an unusual level of coordination and care that's worth watching out for. Supergirl releases in theatres globally on the 26th of June. And if you're going to watch it on the big screen, make sure you're looking out for the details. Thank you again to the team at Collider for arranging this set visit for me. It was really a wonderful day and I learnt so much. And thank you to everybody who took around the group of journalists and influencers on the Warner Brothers set, everybody from Warner Brothers and DC. And thank you to everyone that we got interviews with on the day and shared some of the fascinating details behind the production. For more information and news about Supergirl, head over to collider.com and you can read my full article there too.